So anyway, so tell me a little bit, tell people
How far back do you
who
want me
you
to
are.
go?
Just a little background would probably be good enough. So I'm thinking that going forward, I love the idea of the two of us having coffee and talking about, jumping as using a springboard, the previous interview type podcast,
Hmm.
because like you saw it, I was sitting there going, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a great thought. That's
Hmm.
and in one respect, I was like, that kind of diddles with the idea of me being an expert and knowledgeable. But at the same time, there's a piece of me that says, hey, you know what? Why don't we all just go on a adventure and learn together? And because I've listened to plenty of podcasts like that, and I kind of appreciate the curiosity and all of that. But
Yeah.
anyway, tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into getting clarity.
Yeah. So I'm 65 years old. Had a variety of experiences in my life. Grew up in a home that was a little rough, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, did a number of things until I really gave my life to Jesus, and he got a hold of me, and I determined, or he made it clear that probably preaching was the best thing I could do, discipling young men, doing what the Bible asked us to do, which is to make disciples of all nations. That's what, and I spent a couple of years praying about that, serious prayer, and that resulted in the church that you attended some 35 years ago, which really dates me. And from that experience, I went from pastoring a church, making some bad decisions, and became a car salesman.
Mm-hmm.
And as a car salesman, I quickly figured out that how to make money at it, and to the point where I was running two crews, so I had everybody selling for me, and was making quite a bit of money. But I was also getting myself into trouble with my habits. Anyway, that resulted with me, and maybe you haven't heard some of the stuff, that resulted with me in the hospital with
Oh,
half my face frozen because of
oh, you did tell me.
a
Yeah,
brain bleed, yeah,
yeah.
which caught my attention. Obviously, God has a way of getting a hold of us when we need it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so from that experience, there's only so many things I could do. I was pretty much incapacitated. Only half my face would smile if I smiled, and I mean, I would drool on myself. It was pretty bad. I was at one point they were giving me, they being the hospital was giving me intravenously at 1 gram of steroid a day.
Holy cow.
Yeah, sometimes I could just feel my heart quiver, but that was in my chest. But that was to get the swelling on my head to go down inside my brain,
Uh-huh.
which it did. And I got a job. I needed the simplest, most mindless job I could find because I needed to heal. And so I went to work for a property management company. And I'm not saying to property managers out there that you're mindless or anything else. I'm just saying for me, it was kind of a place I could hide out and make my money, have a place to live, watch my two oldest sons kind of grow up and have time for them. So from that, a lot of things happened. I had gone through a divorce because of the decisions I made earlier. I got remarried. We have 3 kids now that I love to death. And God has slowly been bringing me back to a place of submission and surrender to Him. And at the same time, I didn't really plan it, but I had the opportunity to start a business, a property management business, which I did. And went through various partners. And then in 2018, Sandy and I bought the whole thing. We just took over the management company. And I've had that ever since. So for the past 7 years, I've owned Kinetic Properties in Portland. And that's how I made my money.
Got it. So you sent me a text message. So I took the video of me interviewing Brandon, got it all edited, uploaded it, sent you a link,
Mm-hmm.
and then shortly after that, you sent me a flurry of text messages,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I'd like to kind of go over this just a little bit because I do want to hear. So, you know what? I'd like to back up and say, what did you hear in that interview that you found intriguing?
Okay. You got a couple of thoughts on it. Stuff that I found intriguing. I appreciated the discussion about clarity when it comes to using and training AI.
Mm,
I thought that was pretty apropos to, current business because that's emerging technology.
hmm
And a lot of guys are trying to figure out how to do that. And I appreciated the fact that you made it clear that AI is only going to be as accurate with giving you information as you are accurate putting what you need from it
mm,
into it
hmm
or training it. And of course, it was you know, a great way to explain clarity when it comes to using technology, especially artificial intelligence technology. So I thought that part was really good. There were a few other things that I appreciated about specific to meetings because it was specific to meetings, pretty much most of it.
That was where I started it. It actually got me to thinking. I'm restructuring the way that I do my questions
Hmm.
because I saw that there were a couple things that I could have done better that would have um, directed the conversation so that it could have more naturally flowed.
Hmm.
Because I kind of had it in my head that would be his strength. Um, and then yeah, there was like when he said something and I was like that I should have said, where did you think I was going to go with this?
Hmm.
Like we would have wandered off into some cool places like straight
Yeah,
out of the gate.
yeah.
Um,
I think it was good to stay on topic.
mm,
To try to keep it close to the original intent. I think that always makes sense. Um, it's clear that when you do an interview with him, and this can be a critique or take it however you want, it's clear that you guys have spent time together, read a lot of the same material, and have developed a language.
yeah.
And sometimes references and or books that references to books you've read or references to things you understand about business. I was kind of a little bit in the weeds because I was like,
Okay.
what are they talking about? I mean,
Okay.
just to be honest with you, and if I was like a newbie at owning a business or trying to run a business, I would be scratching my head.
Oh.
It would either inspire me to go like, okay, I want to go get that book,
Okay.
or just go, let's look for something else.
Okay.
and I get it because you want to deal with conceptual things, but I'm kind of a nuts and bolts guy,
Yeah.
and so
Okay.
exactly what words do you say, what lines do you take, and you've got to some of that in a meeting to bring up clarity
Yeah. Yeah.
and to bring everybody else into understanding of what you're after. But technique, I guess, is what I was really wanting to hear because I wanted to know.
Oh,
I've been in
yeah.
some bad meetings. I run board meetings all the time,
Oh,
and I don't know if you've ever worked with a board of 10, 12, 14, 15 people,
not that
but
many.
but yeah, no, I do those. I have several that I do annually,
Uh,
and the difficulty is. Um, well, you touched on it a little bit. You talked about there's a definition of terms that needs to take place. When I
uh,
say a word,
yeah.
I need to clearly explain to them what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
For instance, I was in a meeting, and it was a budget meeting, and we were trying to approve, I don't know what the budget was, 150 or 60 grand. It was a small one. Um, and I, and they, I had, I came into it with bids. Okay, here's the 4 or 5 things we need to get done this year. Here's the bids for it. And they couldn't seem to understand I wasn't trying to get the bids approved. What I wanted to do was show them about approximately how much money we're going to have to spend on this and get them to commit to a budget number. So I spent a considerable amount of time explaining the difference in between looking at a bid, evaluating that, approving that, and just approving the budget number so that we can go later to the greater ownership and get them to sign off on it.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
that's a very simple example, but a lot of times people who uh, don't run board meetings all the time. I mean, they're doctors or they're whatever they are, they're professionals. Um, they're definitely intelligent people, but sometimes simple things are lost, and it changes. They can't respond to a question because they don't know what's being asked.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciated that part of what you guys were talking about a lot. I think yeah, I really was interested, and maybe you'll just get to this question, but I really wanted to like maybe discuss where crystallization, or what's the word I'm searching for? Because you're talking about clarity.
Well, I can just
Let's
read you
go.
the questions because I wrote them down, the ones that you sent me
Okay.
in a text. Um,
Did I answer your question?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure.
And yeah, we're still like in beta mode. Like
Hmm.
I like this is the first time that I'm having a discussion about the previous pod interview that went okay. I told Heather, I said, I think that like a very big deal to me is to become really good at doing an interview.
Hmm.
I think that's where I'm going to put all my focus and energy in, is because I enjoy a good conversation. I enjoy listening to a good conversation. And if I can figure out how to curate, and not curate, but guide
Hmm.
a good conversation, because I've listened to people that, like now I'm listening to, I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Bartlett, Diary of CEO,
Hmm.
or Chris Williamson. Both of them conduct really great interviews, and now I'm listening to them from the perspective of, okay, why did that work?
Hmm.
That was an interesting question. Um, the way that he responded when the guest pushed back on him a little bit,
Hmm.
all of that stuff's like, now I'm looking at it from a completely different
So
view.
I got a question. I mean, you guys talked about prep work yesterday for meetings specifically,
Mhm.
and I know that when you go into an interview, you're obviously going to have do some prep. You're going to have to prepare yourself and figure out questions to ask. But it seems to me that um, you would want to have like a pretty good working knowledge of who and what who the person sitting across from you and what they actually do,
Mm.
so that your questions will be relevant, or they'll be able to answer in a way that's relevant, I should say. And I that's one thing I did like about the interview that I watched last night, or with what's this schmuck,
Yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
Brandon Schmuck, is that it was obvious you guys spent enough time together that there's a certain synergy that existed,
Mm.
and there was a certain ability to play off each other's thoughts. And I could see that not happening if you're interviewing somebody who you're not familiar with, and possibly not familiar with what they do and where they're,
That's a good
what the
take
business
too.
philosophy
I
is.
think that if I was to, because there's definitely some people that, like the people that I was just talking about, Stephen Bartlett, Chris Williamson, they have a couple of people that are like not quite regular guests, but maybe come on quarterly or something like
Hmm.
that. And they've got a completely different vibe um, than somebody they've never met before.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will need to do a little research on that one too.
I think it could be a fairly organic process, just like you do with David, right? The guy you interviewed, David Schmuck. I can't get his name.
Brandon.
Brandon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brandon, if you're letting me say this. But I would venture to guess that there's probably conversations that happen in the interim between those interviews. There's probably some very natural sitting down, talking about stuff, talking through things, common interests, talking about techniques, talking about business philosophy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, talking about a number of different things to the point where you do get comfortable. And there's probably also some personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like network building. I mean, as you kind of grow in this, it makes me think that
Yeah.
you would have quite a few people, kind of your prime time guys, that you are really spending quite a bit more time with, and really deep finding out about the stuff you want to interview them on, and also just on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
in a huge way, it's like development. Developing your guests, developing your relationship with them, so that you can talk intelligently and speak succinctly. Sorry, I probably got way off.
No, it's funny because that interview, I probably edited out a third
Mm.
of it. And And it did get me to thinking about other interviews that I've seen where I'm like, I feel like there was a chunk missing right here. Like it jumped a little
hmm
bit. And it's nothing that I think if I wasn't looking for it, I probably wouldn't notice it. Um, but I was kind of paying attention to podcasts in a little different way recently.
hmm
Um, and I know that and I got to thinking about one podcast in particular where there were three people that were like business leaders being interviewed by Stephen Bartlett.
hmm
And they all had similar but different takes on how, if you were starting all over again at 24, what would you do? And they all had like slightly different takes on how they would get from here to there so
hmm
that they could launch this. And I was like, man, you know what? I'll bet that afterward, because all three of them are savage networkers,
hmm
they probably sat and talked, hey, how can the three of us
For sure.
make
Yeah.
money? And then the host is like, four of us make money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to jump into some of these. Okay, so your first comment was, where does clarity come from and why does it matter?
hmm
What 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 do you want to talk about on that?
Um, and this may be very simple, but I think there's a process. I think clarity can't come until you have a really well-defined vision.
Okay.
I think vision is extremely important, and I think before vision comes an old concept that was used a long time ago, which I learned about like 36, 37 years ago, and that was visualization.
Okay.
So clarity of vision, clarity of purpose comes from being able to visualize in a very clear and realistic manner and explain what you're hoping to get at
Okay,
the
I was
end.
going to say, what define vision?
hmm
What's the difference between vision and goals? Is there a difference?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Vision. When I talk about vision, I'm talking about, okay, you have a vision for this place. What exactly do you want to see, both when you come up here and do this work, and then when you see it replayed? What colors, what carpet, what you said a plant, how the interviews go. There's a visualization of exactly how you want things to be.
Mm-hmm.
So on a bigger scale, let's say a business or something, you think about maybe the end user and then their need and the product I'm going to provide or service I'm going to provide, what it looks like, but down to some of the most minute stuff. What does it look like when I interact with my employees? How do those interactions go? How do those conversations sound? What kind of tenor is going to be struck when we get together and talk about something serious, or we're having a good time together? What kind of culture do I want to develop? And I know these are all different components, but I think a lot of times we don't really sit down and think through exactly. It's an old biblical principle. I've shared this with you. If you were part of that training group back at Turning Point.
It's been a long time.
So the very first time that I really see this concept is when God talks to Abram.
Okay.
And he calls him out and said, hey, I want you to leave, the place where you've lived. I want you to go to a place that I'm going to show you. And then he gives him some promises. And then he talks about his offspring being, greater than the stars in the sky and the sand. And he asks him to look up, and I can only imagine it's a dark night. And the Lord asks him, says, look up, can you count these stars? And he's like,
Yeah.
that's how many kids you're going to have. How many, not your immediate children, but the family that's going to come. Could you look at the seashore, to the sand? Can you figure out how many grains of sand are there? And immediately he's beginning to give him a picture of, okay, that's big. That's bigger than I could ever imagine. And slowly that revelation of what God wants to do in his life becomes more and more real for him. But it starts with a big scope picture. This is what I want to do with you. And I think that the same thing is for us, like, how do we want to impact? I mean, your desire is to impact, people who have businesses, help them become, I'm guessing, I'm just not putting words in your mouth.
Sure.
But you want to help them hone their skills, give them techniques, give them solutions, give them things to think about, innovation and other things like that. But it always starts with just being able to clarify exactly what you want, you know?
Okay, so you're talking about clarity of vision, and then you're probably going to go from there to clarity of process or that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So everything then is driven by what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So we use a process, goals. Uh, the idea of culture, I think, is people talk about it a lot, but I don't see it implemented very well in some smaller settings. Well, in a positive sense.
No, I just had a conversation with Hannah today about culture,
Hmm.
and I had made a comment, and I really appreciate people um, that are humble, in that they'll admit, that enforcing culture
Hmm.
is difficult for me, right? Because we had a conversation yesterday that we both remember it very differently, right? And I had told her, I said, that part of that was that I am learning how to be more in, like, there's some aspects of the culture that I'm really great at,
Hmm.
right? I I want you to tell me the way that you see it. I want your perspective. That was really weird for her. She wasn't used to being told that her opinion was valuable
Mm.
or usable or whatever, right? And at the same time, telling somebody, no, I don't want you doing it like that, or I don't want to, that isn't something that's going to be acceptable.
Hmm.
Um, I find more difficult to do. It's important. It needs to get done. I've seen people do it on rare occasion.
Hmm.
I wish that I had seen it done more, like, so that it felt more normal.
Hmm.
Um, but okay, so you've got,
Let me talk to that just a minute.
do you want to touch on?
Culture.
Okay.
You said enforce culture.
Mhm.
And um, I've always been of the opinion that culture, um, business culture, or church culture, or whatever culture,
Yeah.
uh, needs to be. You got to have boundaries and fences and stuff,
Hmm.
but it needs to be pliable.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example.
Yeah, do.
So when COVID hit, we had the company. My wife and I had owned the company for 2 years, right?
Hmm.
And I'm sending out notices for non-payment, and I'm evicting people, and I'm doing this and doing that. Uh, when we first established the company, we had this, written into our statement of mission, was that we wanted to treat tenants, owners, and employees all the same, meaning we want everybody to be respected and valued.
Okay.
Okay. And I'd gotten into kind of a place where the guys that were working for me and myself became a little calloused in that 2 year period, because we were kind of cleaning up the ship a little bit, right?
Okay.
And then COVID hit, and our culture had to change, not just what we did, but how we approach people, because there were people who were losing their jobs, there were people who were going to be not have a place to live, there was all these monies available, so we kind of went from manager policemen to manager advocates.
Okay.
And so I would actually work with people to help them get their money, provide the people who were their, their assistance was coming from. I would work with them and try to, and we collected maybe even close to 100 grand worth of rent
Wow.
during that time, that we couldn't have if we would have just kind of stayed the course and just been, and sometimes it caused some tensions inside, because when you get to the end of the month, you got to pay some owners, you got to give them the rent money, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not my properties. And there was those conversations where, yeah, that money's coming. You're going to have to, OHP is going to come through with that. You just have to be patient. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of vacancies and a very rough market to refill. And that's also when Portland was making a bunch of changes to their laws and stuff. But so what we did became much more compassionate at that point. We still did everything we could do to do what our original intent was to manage these properties at a high level and make sure the owners maximize their profit off of it. But at the same time, it included now being having some sensitivity towards people who were being really pounded by this whole COVID thing. That's a good example. It was impossible to stay rigid in what we thought we should be doing, collecting rents and writing notices and all that stuff. Anyway, that's just
Okay, so in this case here, you were making an adjustment to people, that you were showing compassion, which like wasn't part of the vision statement, I guess.
it really wasn't. No.
But you guys adjusted to
Market need.
like just being a little more human or whatever.
Exactly.
Because yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. My first thought was because yeah, like yeah, we could talk about culture in church, we could talk about culture in business, but we can also talk about culture in like sports programs, like like I'm sure that it's the same way if you're in a band or an orchestra or something like that, where the whoever's in charge doesn't treat everybody equally or evenly, and if you've got a truckload of natural talent, you might get a little more favored treatment, which hurts you with everybody else.
Right.
I've been around programs where even in church, where if you were to ask the staff, hey, is everybody treated the same? They'd be like, absolutely not. No, there's a real problem here with the way that the person in charge is running things, and that's the sort of that's a really great place for the devil to come in and start developing some division and really causing all sorts of problems. You had said so when you said where does clarity come from? That was a reference back to you got to start out with vision, and you had made a comment about this space, and I was sitting here thinking, okay, this space here, really, I already had all this stuff and I just started rearranging it. But at the same time, I definitely did want a particular vibe and feel, which resulted in me getting some curtains and doing a couple other things. So yeah, I was trying to figure out, a real world example to make it.
That's a perfect example. You have an idea what you want it to look like. It drives action. It's you take that and do something actionable. You buy something, put it up. You know what I mean? Rearrange it, paint it, color it. Put sound deadening. Whatever you have to do to make it the space that's going to give you the desired results. Exactly what I'm talking about.
So then you said, how can you protect and nurture it? This is interesting. I want to hear this, because I'm also going to follow up with, have you ever lost clarity, and what did you do to get it back? I mean, and like, go ahead and knock yourself out. I think that your statement could run all over the place, and there wouldn't be any place that I wouldn't be interested in or would be helpful for people.
Okay, nurturing. So obviously, clarity, if you have an organization, you want everybody to experience clarity or some degree of clarity based upon the vision and your corporate culture. And nurturing that, and this was my experience back from the church that you were at, was, as well as other things, but it's really started there, is that it was necessary to restate, kind of reaffirm the goals or the vision all of the time until it became, till I heard it being parroted back to me from
Mm-hmm.
people within, my staff.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we had 17 paid staff and we had 120 volunteer staff. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't know what the number was, but yeah,
it was
I mean, it
significant.
required a lot of people to run the thing.
Yeah. And you would, I would watch people who were involved in some kind of ministry event, and I would see, like, I don't want to use an example yet, and they would see the result of their effort, and they would begin to be coupled with the thing that I was saying over and over and over again. And you would see the light go on, like, ah, that's what you're talking about. That's the result. And you'd see people, uh, you could see the buy-in. They didn't have to come and say, hey, I believe in all this.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see it on their face. You'd see it in the joy. You'd see it in the fact that they wanted to serve. You would see it as a result of something they were beginning to internalize. And so nurturing that is for me was just to be in constant reminder, and then to protect it through encouragement. So when you see people doing the thing that falls in line with that vision, and this doesn't mean people who aren't falling in line with the vision get reprimanded, but we see people who are doing things that fall in line with the vision, and it's becoming part of their thought process and part of their passion. You want to encourage that as much as you can. And so I was very big on um, just that, telling people, man, you did a fantastic job, or let's sit down and talk. I want to, if you could do whatever you wanted to, here's it. Like, I hired this young lady, Debbie Brittle,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and she just loved kids, period. She just loved kids. I saw it from the beginning, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so when we made that change and we brought her on, I sat down with her and said, okay, I want you to tell me what do you what do you when you think about, loving these kids and bringing them in here and teaching them the Bible and things. Tell me what you see. Again, back to the vision thing. What is your specific vision as part of the bigger whole? What part do you see yourself playing, and how can we make it just as amazing and big? How can I help you? How can I facilitate you? That was always my approach. And like you guys talked about it yesterday, bad ideas are bad ideas and good
Sure.
ideas. And we would talk a lot and knock stuff around, like you said, slap it around, and and but what happened was when that avenue was open to somebody to be creative and to have their ideas listened to, then came the part that I valued the most, which is ownership. They own this vision. This is not now my vision. This
Mm-hmm.
is their vision. This is our vision. This is a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And the overriding goal of seeing people get saved and making disciples and watching, giving room to the Holy Spirit and being lavish in our worship and all the things that I saw as part of what, when you walk in the door, you could barely get through the foyer because there were so many people and there was
Mm-hmm.
excitement and there was breakfast going, and all those things were vision before there yet any of them,
Yeah.
you know. But those people, like Terry Morrell, she was fantastic, ran that kitchen window ministry. I said, what do you want to do? And she had a million ideas, and most of them turned out to be fantastic. She was a graduate of Horsemakers Culinary Institute. I mean, how
Oh,
many churches have somebody like that down in the
yeah.
kitchen cooking, right?
Uh-huh.
But not just cooking, having ideas. I mean, she was getting people, she had a whole program for me,
Uh-huh.
you know. Then that's what can be maybe a different conversation for another time. It's like finding people that are better at you than, fulfilling part of your vision. But just that constant encouragement, openness, talking about it, being there if they needed, support, praying for them. And I think that really was without knowing it was just developing a culture, just because that's how the Holy Spirit was working in me and in the rest of the staff. I mean, we cared about each other, prayed for each other, loved each other. Sure, we got, in each other's faces occasionally, right? But nurturing it was one of my primary concerns. It's just like you guys that were in that group and we were, I was trying to disciple the 12 guys. I don't know how nurturing I was. I had a lot to say and a lot to try to teach, But I really, really wanted those who were able to just, okay, I'll give you a chance to preach, man.
Yeah.
And because I wanted them to fulfill, because most of them were there because they had a dream, like, I want to pastor, I want to do something significant, I
Yeah.
want to, and in order to do that, I wanted to like make the fence wide, you know.
There was something that I'd made a comment at a meeting I was at just last night. I was at a church board meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and I had made a comment that it's important that the vision is big enough that if an A player shows up, their vision can fit inside of our vision, right? Because if their vision for themselves is to do something so great and awesome that and your vision is so small, they're going to just leave as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you also somewhere in there got me to thinking about, so I used to love watching a lot of football,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the team that I loved watching the most, like my team, was the Raiders, right? And
You and a couple million other guys.
they were just they were just gritty and ugly, and especially
Smash
like
mouth.
it was in the mid early 80s, right? And they clocked the most amount of penalties of any team, and still managed to win. And they just had this attitude that was distinct
Mm-hmm.
for them versus any other team really in the league.
Right.
Um, and then I remember seeing there would be players that would show up, and you'll see this in like lots of sports programs where you're like, yeah, that guy just wasn't a good cultural fit, or this guy's going to fit nicely, right? With respect to that, what's your take? And then, okay, doggone it, I wish I hadn't said that, because what I really wanted to hear you say, what I wanted to hear you address is frequency
Mm-hmm.
of repeating the vision, because this is something that I see a lot
Mm-hmm.
is, okay, I've got this vision, I said it in January, and like, if anybody forgets, just come on up and ask me and I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
And there's a massive difference between a vision and a slogan,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes I think people think that just do it is the vision or mission statement of Nike.
Right.
But
Right.
it isn't.
Right.
The mission statement of Nike is to like advance sports, and like it's several sentences.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to vision, how often do you repeat it?
So, I believe, the other part of nurture is the coaching thing. But I believe that it needs to literally be woven into every interaction that you have with whoever's working with you or working under you, whoever's hitched their, what's the old phrase, their wagon to, or
Hitch
themselves,
their wagon to you.
or
Yeah,
to
yeah.
themselves to your wagon or whatever. I was always very focused on bringing it back to the main thing. Bringing it back to the main thing. So in every conversation, I sought to reinforce some part or some idea, and this is again back at Turning Point, idea of our vision for that church. And it would affect little things. Like I would sit down and coach the greeters. We'd talk and
Okay.
we'd pray together and we'd coach them. And so if I said, hey, okay, I want you to look like this. I want you to smell like this. I want you to know what a breath mint is. I want you to, I want you to be open. And this is why.
How often?
Man, like weekly for those guys.
Okay.
So sometimes we'd miss a meeting, or sometimes I'd do it through the guy who's heading up all that stuff. But quite often, and if I had an interaction with somebody, an individual who's involved in some ministry, if they came to me with a question, the answer would always include some way or some thing to bring it back to the main thing. I'm trying to get through this book called Essentialism,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not through it yet, so I don't understand everything that's in that book. But it, from what I'm getting so far, it's really talking about eliminating everything, and not just mitigating, eliminating everything that is not crucial to the most essential thing you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like that there. So every conversation, sure we laughed, sure we had fun. I mean, I'd take the staff bowling and we'd eat pizza and, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you, eventually, we're all talking about, I was thinking, and they'd talk about what was, oh yeah, that's right. And it was like, see, that'd be perfect because what we're trying to do is, and I think that would totally work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that later. And it, and I, it was just a constant, that was part of the conversation. That was part of the dialogue. It was part of our rhetoric. It, it was everything. I mean, I'm going to get together with Deborah this coming Tuesday and have coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And she made a comment that really meant something to me, especially coming from her.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I learned so much from you through the years.
Hmm.
And I appreciated that. Not because, well, everybody likes to be appreciated, but not because I was looking forward or because I needed it or anything. I just thought to myself, thanks, God, thanks that you somehow did that. And I think that has to come through.
Mm.
I think our true passion, our true heart has to come through in every conversation, every way. And lately, I mean, in my life, I'm working through some issues. And I realize that I can be a very angry guy.
Mm.
And that's one of the things I'm really working on. And I'm slowly returning to a place of like more compassion, more peace, more, and I don't know why I'm going down that road, but it just in response to your question, it just has to be woven into the DNA.
Mm.
It has to
Mm-hmm.
be conversation, and it has to support the DNA. It's just because what is DNA? Strands of things that are woven together to produce,
I've worked at places where I would say the culture was weak.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've worked at places where the culture was clear,
Mm-hmm.
right? And coming to think of it, like the places where it was weak, it wasn't repeated.
Yeah.
The places where it was strong, it was almost like they didn't care that they said it just last week. It wasn't like they were talking like the idea was too much for you.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even like they were talking to you. It was like they were so captured
Yeah.
by this idea
Yes.
that they couldn't stop talking about it.
That's right.
And that is like, and we're talking like they were talking about safety,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, there's few topics that like I get kind of excited about safety in when I was driving and doing blue collar work,
Mm-hmm.
because if you've ever seen a guy get busted up and his life's never the same,
Right.
yeah, safety is a big deal. But when we're talking about, but in the same stroke, yeah, I've been around places that nobody really knows. We're just like showing up, clocking in, clocking out. We do certain activities, and the significance of those activities,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the reason why the repetition of it, like I'm burning with this vision,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just gonna like everything I say has something to do with this vision, and that's what drives our activities,
Mm-hmm.
because our activities are about influencing and affecting the world
Mm-hmm.
about something that we're all super excited about.
Right.
Gosh, I think I got that right.
And we have to, and that's where connectivity comes from. So, if we have people that we're drawing into this vision, and we are nurturing, and we are protecting, and we are encouraging, and we are coaching, and we are passionate about it, they will connect themselves. They will want to be connected to it. People are drawn to leadership. A leadership vacuum is the worst thing that can take place in any culture,
Yes.
whether it's church,
I
corporate,
agree.
home, whatever. Leadership vacuum is the number one reason that so many, Gen Z are just like, I don't have a clue, what I'm going, where I'm going, what I'm doing. Anyway, so the and it doesn't even matter what you're passionate about. If it's safety and that's your passion,
Yeah.
and it can
No,
be,
they talked about safety all the time.
it could be just as compelling as talking about salvation. It can be just, it, we are built as humans to want to win, to make a mark, to do something. That's how we start out when we're kids. That's how it's just baked into the pie. So it was built in our desire to, like yourself. You want to make a mark. You want to coach. You want people to hear what
Yeah.
you're saying. You want to do something that's significant, right? And um, and too much of what people are employed in on a daily basis doesn't provide any solution or satisfaction for that. That's where I think is the difference between a business with an attractive culture, an immersive culture, and a business without it.
Mm.
Is that there's simply no way, no avenue. It's kind of like, there are thousands and thousands of little churches across the United States of about anywhere from 80 to 120, 50 to 100, whatever it is. Somebody comes there, they're typically, the culture of that church and the structure of that church says, well, you got a couple options. You definitely need to show up and listen. You need to sing when we sing. You need to give us money. You need to listen to the pastor talk. Now, if you want to do something, yeah, you can work with kids. They're dreaded. You can be an usher. You can work in the kitchen, any number of things like that. But people, all those are all needful things, and some people will find like real satisfaction in doing those things. If you're going to build a core of staff, nobody is going to want to continue with you if there isn't a path for them to fulfill what's in their heart, what's been brewing in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a good point. A church vision or your board meeting, that vision does have to be big enough, because if you do get, like you call an A player in there, one of two things is going to happen. Most churches are going to leave as they rebuild. The second thing, the best case scenario, is that they're adept at communicating a clear vision and have the passion and drive to bring people on board. They find the guys and the women that matter right away and get them involved. And they get them involved because they're offering them an opportunity to grow into a gift that they know they've had for years, maybe even used previously.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, really, when we started Turning Point, my goal was to give place to I call them the disenfranchised, the church disenfranchised.
You were using that word in 92?
Yeah.
91?
Yeah, didn't you hear it? Yeah. I said it all the time, because there were all kinds of people who lived in the area where this church was, that neither understood what we did behind the doors or cared, because there was absolutely no point of connection. But more importantly, there's no place for me to go and grow. There's no place for me to flourish. There's no place for me to become a winner. And we saw transformations from people who were just beaten down by life, who went on into wholeness and became powerful at what they did. I think one of the greatest examples, I don't want to drop his name here, but is the guy who ran the 12-step programs that we had. I mean, this is the guy who served in Nam. He was that crazy guy walking around the street all gacked out. He called himself the chemist, the guy that you would walk to the other side of the street, right? And when he came in, he was a little hard to handle, but I was determined, okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity. We were the first, and as far as I know, the only church that did. And that thing blew up. When you have a guy with that much passion, that much, vision, that we had 12 groups at one point going. Survivors of incest, substance abuse, I mean, just, it was amazing. And all he needed, this Vietnam vet who used to be a drug addict, all he needed was an opportunity to go, right? Some encouragement, some coaching. He didn't need a lot of coaching. But anyway, you see, I guess, and protecting that is just the constant, you're doing great. Hey, let's talk because you're doing a fantastic job. I think there's something that would help you.
Mm.
Hey, what can I do? Where you feel I'm lacking in support for you?
Mm.
That kind of conversation. That's the one that people are like, yes, I'll listen to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Not, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what here, you go take care of that. Those are diametrically opposed. The whole approach to how we build something, whether it's corporate or church or family or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
You probably know all this stuff, but I'm not.
No. Well, you're filling in gaps for me.
Hmm.
You're filling in some spaces.
By the way, the coffee's cold.
It is cold. You said clarity is not an end in itself.
Hmm.
The condition or quality that help. The condition or quality.
The
that
second
helps
message
achieve
clarified
goals.
that because I messed up the language.
Okay.
Yeah. So clarity is that condition, that quality that helps you define your tasks. So that's the way at least I look at it. So you don't know what's needful, or we don't know what's needful unless we have clarity. And there's no way for us to accomplish these goals without and I said quality was the other word I used. It's quality and
Not close.
condition and quality. Okay. So the clarity becomes, I say quality and condition, because the more clearly you can communicate what it is you're trying to do, the better, the higher quality product you will have, the higher quality, what's the word I'm searching for? Productivity you'll have.
Okay.
You'll eliminate things that are not essential, and then you will streamline your process and focus your energies where they're most valuable. And that becomes how do I want to say this? That becomes to the exclusion of competing voices and noise and everything else. That becomes the controlling issue. The clarity actually becomes the control point. It becomes the place where you say, nope, we're not going to do that because it's not serving the purpose. It's not incongruent. It's incongruent with the vision. And clarity helps you find, and and for me, when I look at it, it's a quality of not only being able to identify what you're trying to do, but eliminate the other parts and create like a hyper focused, hyper polished, I guess actionable things that are actionable, or not even want to call it a punch list. If you have certain things you need to do to get to a goal, they become of high quality once you eliminate all the peripherals. Am I being clear about it?
Okay. So, yeah, there's something that you said in there that kind of got kind of a cascade of thoughts going with me, because one of the things so when I was thinking of clarity, Brandon and I were talking, and we talked about clarity like in water or something like that. But it occurred to me like a day or two later, I was like, but you know what? There's also like, what's her name? Erica Tata, like the woman that was paralyzed or whatever, right? She jumped into some water, hit her head, and I just happened to see this video clip, like a 20-second video clip with her in it. And I thought, man, you know what? I don't know what she jumped into, but if it was like a whitewater or something like that, that's a different sort of something that's bringing a lack of clarity than, say, a silt out, where somebody stomps in a mud puddle and you can't see to the bottom of it or whatever.
Right.
And as you were talking, I was thinking, like the both of us are super borderline obsessed with church and the structure of it and the way that, and it seems to me
Not
that,
borderline.
it seems to me that if you were to take a whiteboard, like if you're concerned that your church is doing too many things, right? And maybe even unfocused.
We're at the same spot. in
And
our
you
thinking.
just like take a whiteboard and you just start seeing, like, and you can do this clear down to your personal life too.
Mm-hmm.
Just do even your diet. Like the most common one is like a food journal where you just journal out everything and you go, holy cow, I'm a freaking pig, right? I'm eating way too much. And no wonder I'm fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do this with your, like I've heard of business people doing this sort of thing, like they'll log what they did on
Mm-hmm.
any given minute throughout, like every 15 minutes. Their phone buzzes, they got to write down what they did in the last 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll get through and then they'll look at it and go, well, no wonder I'm inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been in my email 16 times this hour. How could I possibly get anything done?
Right.
I need to consolidate and like almost quarantine my email
Mm-hmm.
so that I'm only looking at it at the top of every other hour or, you know, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like a church, a business, whatever, I had to, about 8 years ago, I discovered that we were doing, as a business, we were doing way too many things to the point where we sucked at almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that actually I started out with that gave me a huge advantage was I just did one thing. We just printed shirts and hoodies.
Mm-hmm.
We did nothing else. And then I can't even remember how I got into it, but we added something. And it was even to the point where if a customer said, do you guys do embroidery? I was like, no, we don't. And I rarely lost a sale. I didn't care. I was obsessed on this one thing.
Right.
And I got good at it. Now, with respect to a business or a church or whatever, if you go in inventory, get a big whiteboard out and just write out everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't figure out the theme, then you probably need to do some real soul searching.
Yeah.
To see, you know, either like you need to figure it out, because if McDonald's only has certain things on the menu and most of them, you know, a Chinese restaurant doesn't make Mexican food.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I'd made a comment a while back, you know, that I think a lot of churches get into trouble because they'll wind up doing something like, you know, if you say, who do you guys serve? Oh, we serve everybody. Oh, so you serve, like, you guys are going to have a Chinese version of your service, and you guys are going to have, you know, a ministry to pregnant Ukrainian women that don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And like, where does this stop? Well, now you're just being silly. No, I'm just trying to get some clarity.
Okay. So, two things pop into my mind. Obviously, this has been beaten to death, but the difference in between activity and productivity.
Yes, sure.
Same thing, noise and signal. Okay?
Yes. Dang.
So, the church or a business, if you were to look at the individuals within almost any organization, you would find it's a rule that it's just, if you get big corporations, it's straight across the board. You're going to find 20% of the people producing 80% of the productivity, and 80% of the people trying to keep themselves busy so they feel like they're doing something. And if they're not managed properly, they become a drag. And it's the same thing with a church. We equate activity and with excitement, and excitement means we're doing something for God, and like you said, you got to a place in your business where you realized you weren't doing anything good. Same thing exists in this, and this is why we've come full circle, at least in my mind. This is why the vision has to be clear and it has to be articulated over and over and over again, and everything needs to be evaluated in the light of that vision. And if it doesn't further, it could be an indirect. That's one thing. But doing something completely unrelated or something that has nothing to do with it at all, I think this needs to be thrown to the side, because most churches simply don't have the horsepower to do everything. I mean, you can't be all things to all people. It's impossible.
Yes. Okay, there was a guy that I saw lose his job a few months back, and he was really surprised. I wasn't at all. Um, and the thing was is that I'm I spend a fair amount of time thinking, what are my responsibilities to the people that work for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, in his case, I questioned most of the time that I had interactions with him what his contribution was,
Mm.
right? He seemed to feel that he was really smart and that was good enough, right? And all he needed to do was like reaffirm how smart he was to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 then he got laid off and he was shocked. And I wasn't at all because I was sitting here thinking the vision, like the goal of your employment is to make your boss money,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a huge, like when I'm talking to younger men and I'm like, hey, you need to make your boss look good, you know, don't stab him in the back. You need to look out for him, tell him to his face what he needs to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to look out for the company's bottom line. If you can do those three things, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, if I knew that if I was to ask him, but I don't work there, I knew that if I was to ask him, how do you make this company money? There would be a big like, but I'm really smart, And I find myself concerned, like if he was to work for me, I would have probably pulled him aside at some point and said, hey, how do you make this company money?
Mm-hmm.
What's your contribution to the bottom line? That's what I want you thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm constantly concerned that I want everybody that has an interaction with me. This is part of my own personal vision. If you come to work for me, I know that you're probably not going to retire here. I want you leaving, like I want to send you off into the world being awesome.
Yeah.
Like the woman that works for me, when she came to work for me, she's 22 when she shows up. And at first I'm like, I'm just gonna like I'd come off of a handful of like just a rough stretch, right? Laying people off, the business is all over the place. And I get her in here and I'm like, how much do I invest in her? How much do I, just leverage her? How much of a relationship do we develop? And all of these sorts of, things that I'm trying to sort out. And then finally I get to this point where I realize, you know what? Some of the best people that I've ever had work for me, somebody else poured a ton of time and energy into them. And it was like a gift to me. And I said, man, you know what? I'm going to do the same for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like somebody else is going to say, I don't know where you came from, but I am so glad that they put the time and energy into them or into you, I want that to be said about me.
That was exactly my heart behind discipling guys, in the church you went to. The goal was, I'm going to give something valuable. The question, even more than what do you do to make money for the company? How are you valuable to helping propel the vision and goals of this company? How are you valuable to them? They may not be a direct money earner, but what they do may be indispensable in terms of facilitation or administration or something else like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it comes right back to the fact that if the vision is not communicated all the time, if clarity is not brought forth, then any individual really doesn't have a standard with which to determine if they're valuable to an organization or not. They simply can't see that whether they are or not because they don't even know why it matters, I guess. What my contribution matters.
Okay, there's a difference in the lack of clarity and the obscurity that comes from silt being kicked up in water and white water. Like the obscurity from excessive activity versus something that doesn't belong. How do you gain clarity? I heard somebody say at one point, they said something to the effect of that that we get anxious when we have too many options, right? And so for me, you know, my sense of anxiety when I'm starting to feel anxious, I go, wait a second. It's because I've got too many options. I haven't narrowed things down. I need to inventory, right? And so what I'll do, you know, it's almost the same feeling if you had, you know, 100 flies buzzing around your head and you're just like, it just makes you anxious, right? I've never had 100 flies buzzing around my head, but it feels like it would feel the same.
Right.
And so what I will start to do is I'll just get out a piece of paper and I'll just grab one and pin it down, and I'll grab one and I'll pin it down, and helping and seeing all of this helps me like to start to calm down and start to evaluate things, because some things are super obvious that they don't belong in my life. They got to go. I was, so the structure is I'll do a talking head video on a topic, then I'll do an interview, then I'll do another talking head video, which I rolled out the other night. And in that, you know, because I was going over questions that I wish I would ask Brandon, things that maybe should have come up. And one of those was, you know, we will do things like clean our environment, right? Just cleaning my car out, my vehicle out. Like, it's amazing to me how
Makes you feel better.
how it brings my stress down, or my desk or my work environment or whatever. Like when it starts getting all cluttery, it sneaks up on me. Some people are extremely sensitive to that and they just keep a real tidy work environment, and I'm not sensitive to that. Like I'm just throwing stuff over my shoulder when I'm done, and then I've got a big mess, and as soon as I cleaned it up, the world's a whole lot more right. But one of the things that I said, and I was like, I kind of cringed when I listened back to it, was people, right? Like sometimes there's people that there was a time when they belonged in your life, and then there's a time where, you know what, they no longer have a place in my life. And I've had people that, you know, just stopped returning my phone calls. And I'm like, but I got to thinking, like, what's a good way? Is there a good way to remove somebody that doesn't belong anymore?
I'm not sure I'm the best guy to talk to about this. Because I'm that guy who just doesn't return the call.
Oh, by the way, I edit pretty hard.
Okay.
Like anything that doesn't make us look proper, or like we know what we're talking about, like how it goes.
But I've been in an opposite mode lately. I've been reconnecting with a lot of people that I have not, that I should have been in contact with the whole time. It's part of what I'm going through personally, isolation. But there are people who are part of support or friendship structure I thought I needed, who are actually detrimental.
Okay.
Not just that we don't really have any common, we're not on the same track, but they're actually, they steal time from me, and that I don't want to give them.
Okay.
And I've gotten back to, I used to be really good at this at Turning Point, very good, because people would call me all the time, and I would just say, hey, I don't have time for this right now. If this is really something you need to talk to me about, you know, call and talk to and make an appointment, you know, but don't call me at my house.
Okay.
This is my time.
Yeah.
And I used to be real straightforward about it. Some people got miffed,
Sure.
or if I felt, this isn't something I even want to have a conversation with you about. In fact, you and I talked about this a month or two ago. I didn't feel any compulsion to even give them a reason why. Just it doesn't fit. I don't have the mental, emotional capacity or desire to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to get back to being truthful like that, like just letting people know, because I get invitations to do things all the time, or I get invitations from people who, hey, let's just get together and hang out, let's do this. And I'm going to have to find a way back to just very graciously trying to explain to them that, I really don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I mean, and it becomes more acute the older you get. I mean, the older you get, you start thinking it's value time. It's time that I can't recoup. It's like watching a bad movie, and you go, oh shoot, I can't get that 2 hours back. I just spent 2 hours watching it.
That is with a bad book or a bad movie. Like if you clicked on my like Amazon Prime, and you would find a fair amount of half-watched movies.
Right.
Where
you got 30 resumes sitting there.
Where I'm like, this isn't going to get any better. Like, this isn't going to get less violent. This isn't going to get less, whatever. Like, it's not going to turn into a good story. It's a poorly told, this should have never made it past,
right. No, I know exactly.
Discussion.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But, okay, so with respect to, if you wanted to close us out and give us some closing thoughts on the topic of clarity, what would you say is the most common way that people lose it and the road back?
I think we've touched on most of that. The most common way to lose it, lose vision. And this is what happens. This is the progression I see, because we're humans, and we have limited energy, and even our passion is limited. You can only be passionate about something for so long unless it just completely captivates your life. But what happens is, what I most frequently see is, it's like the guy who's been at the job too long, or been at the pulpit too long. They've lost the fire. They've lost the passion. And with that passion went their vision. A lot of guys come out of Bible school and they're like, yeah. A lot of guys come out with their MBA and I'm going to rule the world. You talk to them 20 years later and they're like shuffling papers in some corporation somewhere, because they've lost the fire, they've lost the passion. And along with it, they've lost the vision. And because they don't have a vision, without vision, you can't have clarity, because what are you clarifying?
Yeah.
I mean, you can bring clarity to a process.
Yes.
I mean, you guys talked about it, emotional. You listed, I think Brandon listed like 5 or 6 things, or maybe 7.
Yeah, it's on the wall.
7 things. And but what we're talking about, what I think we're talking about here, is the kind of clarity that allows critical path thinking, planning, and execution to take place from. That's when I think of clarity, it's got to have a product. And those are the things I think come from it. I think the ability to think critically and act critically come from clarity. Clarity comes from a clearly defined vision. And a clearly defined vision has to be driven by individuals that are passionate about it.
Individuals. I was like when, right before you said that, I was like, I hope he says individual. Because the thing is that we can't swap visions. Like, our vision for me as an individual is mine. It is
Exactly.
like DNA.
Exactly.
And when I've met people that are, they're just mailing it in. The question that I want to ask them is, what would 24-year-old you think if he was here and could look at you? Would he be like, yeah, I'm so glad you're so
really
burned
good
out
question.
and tired.
Yeah.
Like why was 24-year-old you excited about changing the world? And how did you get to this place? Is it because you got defeated? Is it because, you just been punched in the head one too many times? Is it the way that you're doing this? That's the framework that I look at, that I reach for if I see somebody who's mailing it in, but wasn't at one point. At one time was super animated.
Well, if somebody who's like been down that road and is slowly like coming back to a place of purpose again, I would say that there are so many different ways that can happen. It's different as people's visions for their lives. There's so many distractions. You talked about the sheer preponderance of information. Okay, that can be confusing to a lot of people. Trying to adapt to a changing environment while you're doing your business or doing your church or whatever. And what I mean by that is adapting technology changes, adapting changes to the way you do things because the people that you're talking to are a different generation than yourself. Some of you don't know how to happen, but not everybody listens to the same music you do. We talked about that too, or the same movies or have the same references. I think there's a lot of ways that can happen, but really I think mostly it's because at some point our value, again, is not based in a revelation or a vision. It's based upon a perception of what we think other people think about us. And it's not even reality. It's just how we perceive looking at us. As long as I can maintain, and I could be getting way off here, but as long as I can maintain a certain, in the eyes of other people, a certain position or power or competency or whatever, I'm good with that. The vision's gone. My pride isn't. So I definitely need to keep this going somehow. I think it's very easy to fall into that. And
it's a substitution.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a counterfeit. But I think it's too easy to do that, especially when you have people that are still telling you that, patting you on the back. You can have a small company and you can be told by 2 employees that, you're the greatest thing from sliced bread. And that's an old reference, and you'll believe it. One of the best pieces of information I ever heard was from an old pastor that I watched him die in the middle of a huge meeting of pastors. He once said, the beginning of the end for you and your ministry is when you start believing what people say about you. And if I could just say it, like, believe your own hype. And I think it applies to everybody or anybody. I think that once we trade real passion and real vision for people pleasing or for getting our kudos, through some other means, we'll do it. Face it, as humans, we just do what works for us. It's a rare human that rises beyond what just works and actually creates something of lasting value.